before for the side of Bren Esports. And now with the second ban at hand, who could it be? I believe last time they went for the Black Feather ban, if I'm not mistaken, but they're going to go for the Glaive ban.
Yep, I mean, they can easily pick out the Crystal Black Feather for themselves if they need to, but all in all, the Glaive ban just seems very, very logical coming into this game. Grace and Glaive should never mix because that combination is just so strong, very, very strong. Glaive afterburns in, Grace immediately just Holy Nova, and bam, you just get stuck there for 2 seconds, no ad, and it will be a very, very tough time going into the Grace and Glaive. So I understand the ban, but for the side of Impunity now, right, the roster is very, very big. There are still many things that they can ban out. They would probably want to ban out the Lance, else guessing as, oh, they will still go for the Weapon Petal ban. So I really think that, you know, Weapon Petal is definitely a threat to Impunity at this point in time. But now a breather for the side of Bren Esports. They don't have to go for the Taka. They can settle for that Sky. Sync1 has been known to play a very, very mean Sky, and I hope to see him play Sky once again. However, there are majors still on the fold. There is Samuel that is very, very good in the current meta, very good in early game siege and early game damage after you get a Drifting Dark, but they will secure the Lance for Guessing X.
Yeah, I think that second pick spot for the side on Bren Esports is a bit risky to go for, say, a Sky pick. If anything, is a last pick option for them, depending on what the side of Impunity pick up here. But as you said, there's still Sky being picked up for the side of Impunity instead, and that is going to be, I guess, very good. I would like to see how this plays out. I hope we don't see another Weapon Power Sky. I hope it's CP, and if my prediction on that is correct, then we will be seeing a Weapon Power laner, and more so, it could even be the Black Feather that's still available.
Yep, Black Feather, it's very good, but we will be seeing a Scar and a Sky. Well, one thing to save your speculation would be they run double C.
I guess that is the only thing save my speculation, is that they're now going to have to go double CP, but we'll have to see about that. And yeah, I'm a bit surprised, a bit shocked indeed to see. Both good picks. I was also thinking about earlier with the Celeste ban that Scarf is still available, and that Scarf would be a very good pickup, especially with Grace, as Grace is able to go into the front line. And if anyone jumps onto you, Grace can follow up onto them with the Benediction into the Holy Nova to keep them off of you. And if not, you just able to CC chain the Goop with the Holy Nova. And I thought that is a very good pick that they could go with, but they've gone with that, and to add on top of that, they've gone and picked up the Scarf as well.
Yep, and the last pick for Bren Esports will be that of Arden, which means we will be seeing a CP Idris, and on top of that, a Weapon Lance. So generally a protect the carry comp. I want to say they have pulled this out before. I think with Guessing X on a Grace and Sync1 on the wait, let me just refresh my memory a little. Oh, there you go, the Lance. There you have it. So Sync1 on the Lance, and we saw Guessing X on the Catherine last week. So in this week we will be seeing Sync1 on that Lance and Guessing X on that Arden. Rather, you know, interesting the team coming out from the side of from the side of Bren Esports, but all in all, I do understand where it's coming from. Right, CP Idris requires a lot of farm to work, and on top of that as well, requires a lot of, you know, sustain just to keep him alive, just for him to burst down the entirety of Impunity. However, Impunity, they have a rather mobile team comp in terms of the Sky, that Grace that can put out a lot of early game pressure, and it's just down to whether or not Bren Esports can be like the previous game, hold back, hold up, and then come back later on.
Well, they better not hold back for too long, because they are going up against a fairly late game comp here with that Sky and with that Scarf pickup. So I would hope that Bren Esports are just able to finish it out with maybe even the first or second Kraken push if they have that kind of opportunity available to them. But in Impunity's favor, I really like the team comp that pulled out for themselves. I prefer it to the maybe what you were thinking could be a bit more of a double support kind of comp and protect the carry. So, yeah, in that case, I do like what the side of Impunity have. And we'll just have to wait. I don't know if Impunity's teasing me here with their color picks and their indications of who's going to be weapon power and crystal power. So I will hold off on saying anything until I see some real items being picked up in game.
Yeah, but I assure you,
a weapon power scarf.
No, but I assure you, Scarf will be CP, and DevQ might just go on the weapon path. If not, they will be running double CP.
I mean, weapon power pedal is weapon power scarf next.
No. But weapon power petal, it's different. Weapon power petal, it's legit. I mean, it's a really good pickup by any team. Actually, it is one of the most abused hero in rank Q, right? Because of the range. Firstly, of the range, you get 7 range. You basically outrange anyone, and you put out a lot of damage with your trampoline. And on top of that, as well, you just need a Sorrow Blade into 2 Tornado Trigger to put out massive amount of damage. And if you want to go further, go the distance, you can pick up a Tyrant's Monocle for yourself, 100% crit. If not, then simply the Breaking Point. You will just wreck a lot of faces with Weapon Power Petal. But enough about Weapon Power Petal. We do see DevQ picking up a Swifty and a Weapon Blade, which will dictate most probably that he will be going for the Weapon Sky, and then we will be seeing a CP Scarf.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, I was just putting the foot out there. Of course, there's more heroes. There's certain heroes where it is like that with Scarf and Celeste, because they're so similar that in their playstyles, it just has to be CP. It doesn't work so well with weapon. It's not that you can't, it's just that it's not good. So that's the case here, and I'm sure Impunity, rather than, wanting to make it harder on themselves, are going to want to try their best there. They're not going to go for the double CP pickup either that we thought could be a possibility, and instead just go for that weapon power sky. And we'll just have to see how it plays out overall, as the quarter war getting caught in the middle of the fight there, in between the whole team of Brenchon, and we see both teams all up in this lane. But right now, Mr. Jim fairly low, needs to be careful to not get target lock on him, and the DevQ does have that Surrey strike available, could be able to position themselves in a nice spot to get the kill onto Mr. Jim early on, but instead going to back off slightly, play a bit more passive, and go into the jungle with the rest of their team, probably looking for this mid-triad.
Yep, this Elder Triad has been the key and the focal point of Impunity for a while now, and I'm not surprised if they do go for it. However, we do not see the hyper carry comp coming out from the side of Bren Esports. And usually when you see, to protect the carry comp, you will see a lot of times the carries will come down and take the farm away from that of Lance. However, in this case, we will be seeing a Lance will be allowed to go through his jungle fully, which I guess is good for Lance. He gets his item faster, he gets his levels faster, and maybe Idris can just join him afterwards, to get the extra levels and the extra gold as well. But I'm quite interested to see how this Weapon Sky will actually perform, because in the previous game itself,
yeah, and we see now that there's just a bit of poke damage up in lane, nothing too serious. And I think unless, if anything, the roamers are going to have to be the ones to initiate it. As I say that, I remember that Sync 1 is actually not a roamer, even though he's playing Lance. It's that weapon power Lance that all these pro teams seem to love.
Well, I mean, weapon power Lance, you deal so much damage with just one ability. And on top of that as well, you provide extra CCs for your team. However, to continue on my point, I'm really interested to see how DevQ will be like on this weapon Sky, because in the previous game in the previous series, we saw a weapon Sky and did not perform particularly well at all. I think it was trophies on the Sky. He did an amazing CP Sky, but when it comes to the weapon Sky, just did not perform very, very well. But all in all, I have faith. I have faith in the weapon Sky pick. I have faith, although DevQ is just sitting on close to 3,000 gold at this point in time, but I still have faith.
Yeah, we will definitely have to wait and see just where it goes. And waiting is no longer, as Bren Esports are caught out by Impunity, or is it the other way around, as both teams trading a bit of poke, and looks like beside of Bren going to have to go back to base. They're going to give up the mid camp once again, or mid camp actually falling to the jungle shop.
There you go. Sorrow Blade.
Pushing its way in there into the jungle, now on the fold. And yep, you mentioned the Sorrow Blade. Being picked up by Def Q.
And that is really needed. In Truffy's case, what we saw was actually Truffy's going for the breaking point into double Tyrant's Monaco. At the point in time, with that build, you can definitely do that, but you need a lot of ramp-up time. Whereas with a Sorrow Blade, immediately you have that increase in damage, and if you go for the breaking point into double Tyrant's Monaco, you can definitely put out a lot of damage, a lot of burst damage at the start of the fight. And that is something that you really want to play as a weapons guy, because you will just be relying on your basic attack and your Suri Strike to just move around the enemies, but your basic attacks are key. So without the Sorrow Blade, without a Serpent's Mask even, you will face a hard time.
Yep, and we'll have to see that, it really matters for the side of Impunity if they can make it to the late game, but so far there's been no real aggression coming out from the side of Bren Esports, and that's a bit of a worry, especially if you're going to simply let the side of Impunity simply transition smoothly into this late game. I'm sure at some point, and it could be when it's crucial, they're going to turn around and just be so built up, and you probably won't be ready for it. I understand Bren Esports is a great team. We saw how well they played before, but I would just like to see a bit more aggression, especially if you're going to have that Weapon Power Lance. Although Weapon Power Lance this time not going for the Tension Bow is a bit more focused on getting to that mid and late game themselves, so perhaps they're trying to meet them there and have a fight.
Yep.
Oh, and speaking of a fight, one's going to break down. Death from above and Goop being used. Mr. Jim gets caught out, but the Vanguard will save his life. And in return, we actually saw Def Q going fairly low from that. The CP Chakram's doing a lot of damage, and we see them landing onto Blue City. The outgoing and returning Chakram going to do a lot of damage there. And now they're trying to get some onto the turret, but they have no more minions to push with this. Impunity doing a good job of clearing those out, but this is more what I like to see. Bren Esports being a bit more aggressive now, although Arden and Mr. Jim going back to base there, and a bit of jungle being stolen away by Sync 1.
Definitely, but one thing's for sure is that Sync 1 is not playing as aggressive as I would like him to play, because generally when you see an aggressive weapon lance, is because all the tension will proc, and you see the lances go ham with that impale, with that lane gangs. But I must say, very good positioning coming out from DevQ overall as well, just constantly staying behind Quarterball. Granted, in that there was one team fight where DevQ just got super low even before the team fight broke out, but all in all, the side of Impunity just knew when to back off and back off to safety. And I really like what DevQ is doing right now. He is going for the breaking point just for the extra speed, and on top of that as well, because of the repositioning that Sky can do very, very easily.
Oh, great use of the Death from above does catch out guessing, and then it's the follow-up CC coming through with the Holy Nova, but Blue City getting pushed back away, but it's not going to be enough to stop the onslaught coming out by Impunity. But Blue City now needs to be careful. Mr. Jim still alive on the fold and kicking. Those Chakrams are fairly dangerous if you get hit by the outgoing and returning Chakram, but Sync 1 going to jump in and then gets caught out in the goop. The CC and synergy between Impunity showing why they're the top team at the moment for SEA. And wow, that it was so fluid and so great. You saw the Death from above followed up instantaneously by the Holy Nova, and then in that, even the second example they gave us there, thank you Impunity, they follow up with the Goop and the Holy Nova. Just very great work, and yeah, it shows that Impunity, such a top team, and why they've been able to get to where they are now.
Yep, and on top of that as well, we must realize that it was because Sync 1 miss that not on point, but rather than Impale, putting himself in the midst of all three enemies, and that is something that Sync One may not want to do in that of future to just secure this win for the side of Bren Esports. I'm not saying anything, but anything is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, without saying anything and nothing, we see the death from above going down. It's only zoning this time and not able to catch anyone out with that one. But yeah, definitely it was a bit of a mistake from Sync 1, but that's the thing that these teams have to pick up on, are the mistakes of the enemy, and we see that as Quartervore face checks the brush, and Bren Esports are able to punish them right back. So good job by Bren Esports, and they're really stepping up their game today and bringing the fight to Impunity as they take the first turret of the match.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that, Gauntlet to be thrown down just to secure Quartervore's death. All in all, that is 100 seconds cooldown, and I don't think that is a good choice of Gauntlet whatsoever. However, it is what it is. They secured a kill for themselves and a turret for themselves as well. So who am I to say? What am I to say? They did what they have to do to push their first objective, and they are looking to go for the gold mine, or rather Impunity is. All three members now just rotating up to lane. The start of Bren Esports should go up to lane really, really quickly just to stop the siege coming out from the side of Impunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. They need to be hit to defend their turret. Oh, death from above. Very good usage. They're going to use a Crucible in case, just to make sure they don't get stunned out from that. And as long as Bren Esports are able to hold on to this advantage, this might be what they need to, as I said, go towards that mid-game, try get enough objectives and get ahead as much as they can in the early, and then with that Kraken, try push on as early as they can to go for a win. And great use of that Impale and the Chakram movement as well, which I love to see on CP Idris, as they're able to get a lot of damage out from that one. And they're going to go in deep. Blue City might be the next target, doing what he can to stay alive, and he actually catches out Idris in the goop. Def Q very low as well, and Sync 1 is actually going to find themselves all alone, and Blue City just needs one more goop. Sync 1 dodges it out, but what more can they do? Quartervore is waiting on the other side of the wall. They're going to use the Benediction to go over there. They get the ace, and Impunity turning it back around.
Very, very poor team fight coming up from Bren Esports there. Mr. Jim, for the entirety of the team fight, was just standing on top of the goop, and the goop just drained out so much of his health, and that should not happen at all. You are an Idris, you should be staking. Granted, you have your range basic attack because of a divergent path, but all in all, it should not be happening at all. Whoa! That was a close steal.
Yeah, close, but not quite, as Holy Nova are able to stop Guessing from stealing that one, and Impunity are able to secure it for themselves. And you're right about that there, that as well as just standing in the goop being bad for yourself, you're also giving more health back to the Scarf when he's got that Eve of Harvest already picked up, and now a Broken Myth, which will be even worse if that happens in a later fight, because he's going to get these Broken Myth stacks, as we currently are still playing in the old patch, so that is still a viable thing. And right now, it's going to look like Bren, as I said, they were playing aggressive, and that's good, but they just need to control their aggression and make sure they're not being too reckless in these team fights, which we'll have to see how it goes as both teams kind of getting ready to fight. There's a death from above coming out from Sky, and Mr. Jim suddenly jumping back, knowing that he's going to be the target. Gauntlet goes down, Divine Intervention to keep Def Q in there, and that's great usage of the Chakram onto them. They have a second Divine Intervention, not going to land, and yeah, there was a second one. There's Echo on Quartervore, I'm not mistaken, but Idris jumping onto the Scarf and picking up another kill for themselves. Quartervore, the last one left standing, and this was a lot better of a team fight for Bren. It looks like the teams at this moment just going back and forth. I mean, we're 5 kills to 5, and the gold lead is slightly in favor of Impunity, but look at the objectives here. This is really what's pulling through for the side of Bren Esports, that they're able to get kills, win fights, and get objectives. Of course, last time Impunity were able to get that gold mine, but I think these turrets are so much more important for the side of Bren Esports, as they're able to really just get more presence over the map for themselves. And then when it pushes around to Kraken, that will be up in just under 2 minutes. They're going to have such an advantage there if they can win our team fight.
Yep, the only reason Impunity, or rather the gold lead, is so close together is because of the gold mine that was secured by the side of Impunity altogether. And of course, I mean, we cannot quite forget the CSs as well. Looking over at Mr. Jim's CS, Mr. Jim is sitting at 174 CS, 13 minutes in, as compared to Def Q, which has 134 CS. Right? I mean, granted, Mr. Jim now at this point in time is being hyper carried, hyper farmed, but Sync 1, Quarter War taking so much damage from Mr. Jim then, but Sync 1 is only sitting at a mere 39 CS, 40 CS altogether. So as compared to Blue City, Sync 1 is not too far behind, just 20 CS behind, but Mr. Jim, however, is just working so hard to achieve those last hits and get those items really, really quickly.
Well, I think that's what's the difference here in terms of team comp overall, that they have that real budget. It's what we've been calling it. It's the budget weapon power lance, because you can do it so economically. And right now we see they might be able to punish Quarter War, who's actually stuck behind the wall and is going to use divine intervention on themselves, but it's going to be too late. Gauntlet drops, but DefQ managed to find the kill onto Mr. Jim. And DefQ trying their best to get another kill, but Sync 1 still going to be up and standing, and no one's taking care of Blue City. He's now got 9 broken myth stacks. He's very dangerous to deal with. Sync 1 just going to have to run away out of there, especially with not having the damage they need or the utility in their own kit to really take a 1v1 against Blue City. And they're, I think, trying to bait something out here, as they manage to secure their own mid-camp. And now Kraken is up on the fall. Both the teams still so very even. 7-7 kills, 32k 0.4 on the side of Impunity and 34.9 on the side of Bren. So very close at the moment, but overall, Bren Esports have done a great job to defend their turret up until this point. We're 15 minutes in, and they still have their first turret up. So I really have to give it to them for being in such a good position coming up to this Kraken fight.
And let's look over to Mr. Jim's build. Double shatter glass into broken myth and then alternating current. This is something that we've seen before, and this is where we saw it was from Trophies when he was on the CP Idris. Excellent adaptation of the build, honestly, a lot of damage, but it is just down to whether or not Guessing X and Sync 1 can protect Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim must be protected with their dear life, and there's only one way to do it, and that's peel hard and peel hard for him. And only him. But when we do see though, Bren Esports, going in for that push.
Yep, and there's the backs coming out from the side of Impunity, and Quarter War going to jump onto Mr. Jim. There's a death from above. Guessing manages to get the Vanguard off and step out the death from above on his own as well. So Bren Esports could potentially try go for a really quick Kraken, but I think it is a bit too risky, and they would be better off looking for a fight. We do see an infusion on Mr. Jim and Sync 1, but in reflection to that, Blue City and DefQ also have infusions. There's going to be the death from above, but the gauntlet going down, and DefQ manages to find his way out there, but then there's a second gauntlet coming down, and it's just between whether Mr. Jim can get the Sky down, and he manages to, but can Scar find the kill onto Scar, onto Idris before he goes down? Yes, he can. And now it's up to Sync 1 to finish off this Scarf, who's so tanky for now with that Eve of Harvest, but they managed to get the kill in Quarter War, the last one left on the run from Sync 1, and Guessing they managed to stun them up. There's the Holy Nova. It's going to take a bit of a while to kill Quarter War, especially when you don't have, you've got like a bit of damage there on the lance, but they managed to find the ace in the end. However, 5 seconds before Sky is up, I would say they might be better pushing the lane in this situation with the aced up minions they have, but they're going to turn their attention to this Kraken and hope that Idris can get there quickly.
Yep, hopefully Idris can get to them really, really quickly. I mean, Idris has got the journey boots at this point in time, so I'll not be surprised. But this Kraken really will have no competition whatsoever. Sky is very close to the Kraken pit, but will eventually just back up. And this Kraken will go over to the side of Bren Esports. No contest whatsoever. Bren Esports at this point in time looking very, very strong. And all they really have to do now is just watch the position and can possibly just push for the win.
Yes, the problem with this is Impunity are going to have a fairly easy job of burning down this Kraken. I mean, they have the Scarf and the Sky, who are fairly mid to late game at this point, with a lot of items built up on themselves, and there's going to be a lot of damage coming out, especially Scarf's going to be able to put the goop right under the Kraken, and Sky is going to put down a lot of damage with the forward... actually, I'm too used to CP Sky. We'll have to see how this fight breaks out, as Mr. Jim has to use the Shimmer Strike onto his own team to get out, but he manages to pick up the kill onto the Scarf early on in the fight. That's massive, but Def Q is still up and standing. There's going to be a double kill for Mr. Jim. The Phantom was used to keep him alive, and Bren Esports look like they could close out this game. They are going to take it 2-0 to Impunity as they take down the first turret. Kraken's still healthy. Mr. Jim is low. Can he finish it out with staying alive just so they get the perfect onto this crystal? They might even get the ace, and Mr. Jim does it. Bren Esports does it. And GG, well played. What a game. I told you that this was my game of the day to watch, and indeed it did not disappoint. Bren Esports bought their A game, and they are going to just take down Impunity with style.
Wow, that gave me goosebumps. Good game. I must say it was great game. Very well played, Bren Esports. Just taking Impunity